Hello, my name is Michael, and I'll be presenting a Pechakucha on the graphic novel Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. So this Pechakucha is intended to explore how Persepolis borrows from other texts in order to create the content or create these effects that are used throughout the text that bring upon um, a deeper understanding or a deeper interpretation by the reader, he or she himself. So first, I'll be looking at the artistic styles. Van Gogh, particularly, is borrowed from multiple times throughout the novel consistently. The in particular Starry Night, or like the swirly lines that are portrayed throughout this particular art piece, is used in order to bring upon the aspect of simplicity. I believe that simplicity is used in order to create a more reader-friendly or reader interpreter first approach, where the interpreter is bound to see what he the interpreter gets to interpret what he or she believes that these certain pieces are meant for. This can also be seen in the Islamic art, which comes hand in hand with Van Gogh's style, is that the simple patterns are used in order to create this desired effect. An example of this is when Marji is looking at whether or not she's having a more social dilemma of whether or not to follow her Islamic roots or to follow into the westernized modern roots. Another artistic way that is borrowed is through the biblical reference of God and Marx himself as well. Marx and God are both depicted in this flowery, white, very spiritual looking creation, which is portrayed multiple times throughout the novel, which show also this reader interpretation of what God is supposed to be like. More into content of that is borrowed is we can look into biblical content. For example, Romans 12:19 talks about vengeance and how vengeance is not ours but is more of the Lord's. This can particularly be seen in the scene with Raman, where Raman's father is convicted for killing many men, where they try to have revenge, but God appears and shows that vengeance is his. Also, when Anush is taken, this aspect of how, although Marji is very angry, that vengeance is not hers, rather God's. This comes also hand in hand with the concept of psychomechia, which is the battle of the soul, or a full-scale war between all of an individual's personified virtues, such as humility, chastity, patience, against his or personality vices like pride, lust, or anger. So we can see this often occur where she's not quite sure whether or not she should be doing something or not, where God or her grandmother is also quite often implicated. Another aspect is Marxist. Karl Marx, the man of social classes or in social categorization, we can see that Marjane borrows from Marxism quite often in order to portray this idea that Iran was separated into multiple different social classes. For example, we can see a class consciousness occur when Mary, the maid who falls in love with the next door neighbor, she's unable to be with him and follow out her love and aspirations and dreams due to the fact that Mary is part of a different social group than the neighbor. And we can see that although this is unfortunate, that this is the reality that they're placed within. Women's subjugation is a large aspect that is also borrowed that occurs after Iraq invades Iran. We can see this first occur at the shopping market where Marjane's mother is called a whore due to the fact that her scarf is slightly lifted up. Her mother is called the dirty Western. Dirty Western. Most of the women throughout the novel are called dirty Westerners due to the fact for certain social choices that they make, such as drinking. Additionally, Western culture is borrowed from even more in the scenes where Punk is Not Dead occurs. It can be seen, or lipstick, Iron Maiden, Pink Floyd, nail polish, Michael Jackson, Nike sneakers, or even on her way back where she's questioned whether she has porn or films or fashion, which are all viewed as illegal. We can see that all of these things are viewed as decadence and defiance throughout the novel, in that in Iran, that those were the held laws. Next, we can see Western culture. She tries to understand more about the culture clash, where Margie is looking at the TV and she's looking through the novels about Sartre, Bakunin, Zweig, and even Freud, where she's just trying to overcome this culture shock in a sense. However, we can see that Western culture is once again borrowed from at the idea of love at first sight, where Fernando appears. Foreign culture next is borrowed upon in that she has new friends at the French school called Momo, Theory, Olivier, and Eve, where she joins their band and begins to adopt their ideology of drugs, apparel, and society, which are is strange in that when she goes back to Iran, all of these are viewed upon severely negatively, and she's considered to be a prostitute and even a whore for these very things. So, a consistent theme or reference that I felt that was important that was consistently borrowed from was the to the phrase "be true to yourself" or "to thine own self be true, and they must follow as the night the day thou canst not, then be false to any man." Um, this was the idea of William Shakespeare and Hamlet mixed together in that you have to be true to yourself, where we can see constant self-reflection and herself constantly not knowing who she really is, but her grandmother continuously tells her to believe and be true to herself. This also occurs in the difficulties of being an Iranian, sorry, where she's considered a savage in certain other countries due to the fact that Iranians were fanatics fighting and screaming at one another, or that was the predisposed belief that other people held about Iranians. So, a large portion, or well, the backbone of the story, where is that Marjane borrows from the idea of using a graphic novel to portray do the storytelling. By using frames of drawing with minimal text, the graphic novel calls on the reader to enter into this different kind of textual interpretation. A reader must read the captions in the frames and interpret this text within the context of the paneled art. Artistic style becomes very important as the text for relaying narrative to it's the means of relaying the text. Next, we can see the idea of modernity versus fundamentalism throughout the text, which is we can see that there's these families such as the Satrapies themselves. They hold modern views, whereas they're like Western political and social beliefs, whereas the religious and ideological fundamentalism is portrayed throughout their religion and whatnot. Um, Persepolis borrows from many ideas, such as the relationship between parents and children. This can be seen as a metaphor for her relationship with her country and the wider world. The conflict and love she experiences with her parents is a necessary part of her growth as a person. Her relationship with her mother and father is both tender and full of tension, and her parents love and her seek to provide her with the best in education and upbringing. Um, we can see that Persepolis also borrows from many other ideas, such as the Bildungsroman um, concept. This is the concept where the novel is a complete. It's more of a genre of literature in which the protagonist, Margie, undergoes a process of intense moral growth and self-actualization. Um, we can see that Satrapi's novel especially is considered due to the fact that it actually had two different parts where she was young and then she transforms into an older self. The search for identity is also a large portion of the text in which she's constantly scratching for her identity and searching for whether she should be identified as a true Iranian or be identified as this liberated Western um, type of person who experiences the world, all different types of aspects of the world actually. Um, Lastly, a very large portion of this text is nationalism and education. We can see many times Margie's love for her own country, however, has an immense love for her own country, however, oftentimes questions to certain acts or deeds or events that occur within the occur within the country. Also, education is often looked at many times throughout the novel, in which she values her education quite highly at certain peaks of her life, where she's trying to unveil the truth about certain um, aspects that are occurring within the world in the Shah. Thank you. This was my Pechakucha for Persepolis.